Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Terrence McCauley podcast. We're calling this one The Assassination Files. And I am going to be speaking to a variety of experts that are familiar with the JFK assassination, as well as familiar with the way government agencies work, whether it's from a tactical or a professional aspect. My guest today is Steve Stratton. He started his military career at the White House Communications Agency, supporting the needs of Presidents Ford and Carter, Vice President Rockefeller, and Walter Mondale, and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. His work took him around the world, introducing him to new cultures, ways of thinking, and the various agencies tasked with protecting and projecting America's interests abroad. The jump to the Secret Service was an easy transition, but after several years in an election campaign, Steve left for the commercial sector. From the 1980s and 2000s, he was deployed with the 20th Special Forces on counter-drug and training missions in the SOUTHCOM region. Today, he develops cybersecurity products that support the warfighter and intelligence community. And the reason why I explain all of that up front is because part of this experience is that the people who are joining us on this unique journey with Silverback Publishing are buying into an experience. And we're trying to bring you some of the best, the most qualified people we know to talk about some exciting topics that we think will be of interest to you. So Steve, thank you for taking the time to be here. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you envision the whole JFK myth, the assassination, the stuff that has grown out of it. What's your take as a professional on people's ongoing fascination with this event?
Yeah, so I was trained early on at White House Com. We supported the president in DC and then would go on advanced trips to put in the communications, everything from radio systems. Back in the day, we didn't have cell phones, right? So it's radio systems, phone systems, wire up any places the president or vice president might stay overnight. Work hand in hand with the Secret Service. And so the Secret Service is send out an advanced team. And on that team, there would be agents that were focused on the ground movement, right? Motorcades. There were agents focused on specific locations. Eventually, when I moved to the Secret Service, I was part of the advanced teams doing the technical work, like preparing barricades or checking out elevators to make sure they didn't have bombs in them, things like
Right.
that. So that was back then called Tech Security Division. So I have a unique perspective on all the work that went on prior to a president going anywhere. And the motto really was nothing's too good, too expensive for the protection of the president. So
Right.
The fact that at that time, there were some gaps in what the Secret Service did and how they thought compared to today, I believe, led to a shooter being able to, Lee Harvey Oswald, be able to get into that book depository and take an easy shot. I'm retired military, and yeah, I've done a lot of shooting, but in reality, that really was easy shooting, as he has that line of sight with the car moving away. And it's not speeding, it's going slow. The president's waving, the governor's up there waving, everybody's in the open top car.
Right.
And so it's not, it's not something that you need, I can't remember, American Sniper. You don't need
Right.
a super professional to take the shot.
Right.
So yeah, when I got to DC, it was right at the end of Nixon. So there was another swirl going on about presidency. But
Right.
yeah, it was one of those things I had to ask about, and people were not real interested. There were people that were still around that weren't real interested in talking about that on either side,
Hmm.
on the communication side. There were, and on the, of course, the Secret Service side. And so, it was seen by the Secret Service, it was seen as a huge failure and very demoralizing, and is what I was told.
Right.
And
And they did a lot that day that they were supposed to do, but then they were waved off to not ride on the car with the president, that they wanted to have a clear campaign shot for him as he went through the adoring crowds. I would imagine that was always going to be a sore spot after that event for the Secret Service and for the White House in general.
that is always a source of tension, is right. Even after that, Clinton like wading into the crowds, right, and grabbing hands and things like that, and that's one of those times where as we saw with President Ford, right, Sarah Jane Moore,
Right.
luckily the man in the wheelchair bumped her arm up, and also with Squeaky Fromme. So we've seen attacks and attempts over the years.
Hmm.
Luckily, as of late, they've been defeated, but that is always a source of tension, right? The campaign and or the staff wants the president to be out there in the public and a man of the people, and
Right.
this service is like, okay, well, wear this body armor, wear this raincoat, put this on, kind of thing. No, you can't have, right? There are no convertible beast, is what the limo
Right.
is called. There's no convertible beast anymore. There's a hatch if it really has to stand up, but that there's much better ways to. It's much better for the president to travel contained,
Right.
get to a location, pop out where you have better control, right,
Right.
of a situation. And as we were talking we've talked previously, that idea that once you get to a site, now we have counter assault team.
Right.
Its whole job is just to stop an assault so that the president can get away. The Secret Service is not in it for the gunfight like a military would be. They don't want to take a position. They just want to
Right.
stop the attack long enough to get the protectee out of the way. That's what counter assault team's about. And then there are snipers, counter snipers,
Right.
men and women who are very good at finding like people, and they are positioned all around different sections of motorcades, and of course in locations that the president would be stopping.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing too. With people, they have a different view of what the Secret Service is. They think it's all, as you mentioned earlier, gunshots and bang bang, but it isn't. It's a lot of prep work. It's an awful lot of intelligence work, and it's also just being able to read the scene and see where the problems lie. And I'm glad that we don't. I don't think we have that expectation of a president being that accessible anymore since the Kennedy event. We don't expect the president to wade into the crowd. Bill Clinton was an example, but with the rise of media, there's accessibility in other ways that are much safer for the candidate or for the president.
Depending on what the candidate or the president is doing, it's much safer.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, I was, before I got involved in government, I used to tell you how long ago this was. I was part of the team that helped when Bob Dole came to New York City and New York State. And I got a chance to see some of the Secret Service in action then. And I was surprised by how calm they were. And they weren't these Hollywood Arnold Schwarzenegger types, and not even Clint Eastwood types. They're just really calm, professional people who focus on what they have to do and get the job done. And they listen too, which is a huge advantage, because I was one of the people who's familiar with the ballroom they were going to be in, so they did listen to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You take in, oftentimes there are, like during campaign years, there are certain places that are going to be used during the campaign, right? They're going to be stops on the campaign trail. And every 4 years, there are agents that have been there, right? So they'll draw those people back in. And when that advance team gets there, by the way, it's like in the novella, you make use of the field office people. They know the lay of the land, right? In that
Right.
location. So advanced teams would make use of, and also, as you say, on the intelligence side, I'm old enough that it used to be a Rolodex, like a card system, right?
Right.
It was called like chief of police something, but it was like the card system of your 100 most biggest knuckleheads in your location, right? That you're keeping track of,
Right.
and so much like in your novella, people are going out and checking on those knuckleheads, those people that have said things over the past, against the president or the United States, things like that, and sort of making sure they're still in the benign state and not in the agitated on the way to doing something state.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I really love that about the novella, that you've really captured the essence of what goes on at the field office and the way that happens. The advance team comes in, and it's like if you're on the Presidential Protecting Detail, PPD, oh, it's like the Almighty's right hand has come in, and now everybody's subservient, and there can be that kind of feeling. But I think the Secret Service has worked over the years to, you know, treat other law enforcement agencies with respect, and once again, use their knowledge of the terrain, the layout, the people in that local area to their benefit.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. And it's funny because when I was doing research for Chicago 63, I was under the impression that a lot of people have the hyper effective, hyper efficient government. They have plans for plans and on top of plans. An endless supply of people who can go into the field and do this kind of stuff. But back then, the Chicago field office of the Secret Service was only about 8 people, and there were only about 2 agents of that 8 who had to prepare for the president coming in. And then when the advance team came in, there was a lot more. But I was surprised that even though in the novel I kind of put both of their activities under one agent, based in fact, that there were there weren't a ton of people doing this stuff. The FBI helped, but they kind of backed off because they said the presidential protection was a Secret Service issue. So it was fascinating that there wasn't the army of people that one expects to have. And I think that popular culture has kind of shaped our idea of how rugged and how tough this stuff usually is.
Yeah, so for the 1980 campaign, I was at the National Convention in New York, and there was 250 of us agents working,
Right.
and I had bomb teams from the Air Force, EOD teams from the Air Force and the Army with me, and K9, all that, looking, doing my kind of work, and yeah, and then we pulled in other Treasury agents, because the Secret Service then was Treasury, not DHS, and so we'd
Right.
pull in like IRS inspectors, and funny story, they show up, they don't bring a gun. They're like, oh well, I guess I can't put you on